Are we on? I'm on. Is this thing on? No. Okay. Thank you. Take it away, Sister Angela.
Thank you, Kent. Thanks. What I'm going to present today is an accumulation of work that a group of us have been doing over the last year and a half. I've called it Thinking Outside the Box because there's been an emphasis on new ways of doing things over the last year. After 9/11, it was realized that the old ways don't work. Remote viewing is a new application, fairly new application, so we were thinking that perhaps we could apply some remote viewing techniques, some methods to solving some of the problems that have arisen. I've entitled it Remote Viewing as an Intelligence Gathering Tool. I am not in the intelligence community. I was not in the military group. I worked as a researcher at the Pear Lab at Princeton University between 1987 and 1992, and met quite a few of the people in the intelligence and parapsychology communities. And in 1991, I linked up with SciTech and did some remote viewing consulting with their group. And from then on, I became very involved in the remote viewing community. The presenters are myself, Angela Thompson Smith. I have a PhD in psychology and a background in medical research and child development before I became interested in the human consciousness field. And I now teach, write, and do other things in the consciousness field. The Nevada group is a group of trained remote viewers around the country. These are people who have trained in remote viewing, either CRV or other derivatives of CRV, and who have undertaken to be on call for taskings. The Nevada group was originally a humanitarian group that had agreed to take on tasking such as missing children, missing people, and other projects. And following 9/11, when I started to get requests from individuals for help in trying to find who were the perpetrators of 9/11 and other questions, we decided that we would put some of our effort into those areas. And remote viewing consulting is my private business that does teaching, research, and writing on remote viewing and parapsychology topics. I really like this quote by Ingo Swann: "For remote viewing to have a more positive influence on our future, it must be found useful at the grassroots level, where goal-oriented individuals can perceive its applications for the common good. Only those individuals who've made some effort to understand it as a personal experience will be in a position to comprehend more fully the potential of it. They are the advanced thinkers who will redefine the boundaries of consciousness." And I believe that in remote viewing applications that we will further the public's interest in remote viewing. The current problem. The Nevada group has been working on projects related to the location of the perpetrators of September 11th terrorist activities, the location of the individuals who have purposefully spread anthrax, and the prevention of potential future terrorist attacks. Remote viewing as a tool. Why should we use remote viewing in this context? Every tool available should be put into operation to combat terrorism, not just the ones that have been used in the past, but we should be looking for new tools to use, including remote viewing. Remote viewing is a human factors intelligence gathering tool called remote viewing. This is such a tool that can be used in this area. And for those who don't know the history of remote viewing, it was developed over 30 years of research and development and funded by government agencies and the US military. Thinking outside the box, calls have come from individuals in positions of power in the US government. The November 2001 US Patriot Act was talking about a new anti-terrorist bill, and these documents you can find online. The Attorney General called for the mobilization of the American people, asking for the American people to be actively involved in these areas. Attorney General Thompson called for developing and using every resource. Remote viewing is one of those resources. Although the Nevada group and other groups have not been tasked officially by the US government or the military, there are private individuals within these organizations that understand remote viewing and its potential uses. So following 9/11, the Nevada group and other groups were asked and tasked by individuals within Pentagon, Department of Justice, Navy, Department of Energy, and foreign governments who sought out remote viewers for operational work. There were frantic calls for assistance from many groups. However, this scattered approach to remote viewing is both uneconomic and poor management of this important resource. It's a very scattershot approach. And what we're trying to do as the Nevada group is to provide some kind of consolidated location, venue where viewers, taskers, and analysts can be put together. A little bit about the historical background of remote viewing. Remote viewing is a human information accessing capability, and it pertains to the mental ability to access and describe information blocked from ordinary perception and secure against such access. The photo is of Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ, two of the main two researchers who developed remote viewing at SRI. This was taken at Alamogordo in New Mexico in 1999 when we had the first meeting of IRVA. IRVA was developed as an association. The term remote viewing was coined by Ingo Swann and Janet Mitchell in the early 1970s. The topic was researched at Stanford Research Institute and then at SAIC Palo Alto in California. And the Defense Intelligence Agency created the US Army Remote Viewing Team at Fort Meade, and that was operational until 1995. Current activities, retired military are now teaching remote viewing, carrying out operational applications, and the formation of the International Remote Viewing took place in 1999. This is a little bit of background information. What remote viewing is not. And that's me in a Halloween costume. Remote viewing is not witchcraft, storefront psychics, voodoo, Satanism, or New Age hype. It's none of these things. What is remote viewing? Remote viewing is the trained mental ability to access and report in a prescribed manner, in a protocol, information that's accessed via something other than the known five senses, using methods and techniques that were developed over 30 years of research. And descriptions and examples of the main remote viewing methods and techniques follow. Outbounder protocol was developed at ASPR and SRI by Ingo Swann. Researched at Princeton University. The viewer perceives the location of a beacon person. That's an individual or a group of individuals who go out to a target location and are perceived by the viewer. Useful for tracking criminals, terrorists, and missing persons. Usually carried out with an interviewer or a monitor and a data relayed to an analyst. The outbounder protocol is useful where conventional systems, wireless radar, radio cannot penetrate, unobtrusive and low cost. Coordinate remote viewing was also developed at Stanford Research Institute. Viewing is done blind, which means that the viewer and often the monitor do not know the identity of the target, and with minimal front loading, no sensory cueing. Consists of written perceptions and sketches, bypasses imagination and logical deduction, and the data is usually evaluated by an analyst. This is an example of coordinate remote viewing. This is Crater Lake in Oregon, and you can see a session summary with a sketch of Crater Lake, a kidney bean-shaped island surrounded by water with a volcano sitting on it. Controlled remote viewing is a protocol consisting of sequential stages that allow the viewer increasing target contact. Viewing is done blind, again, or with minimal front loading. Consists of written perceptions or sketches, and bypasses imagination and logical deduction. And also data usually evaluated by an analyst. Here's an example of a controlled remote viewing session of the Great Pyramids of Cheops, and the viewer was able to draw a three-dimensional picture after going through a series of stages and sequential stages leading up to this perception. Extended remote viewing is another method, another protocol. Extended remote viewing was developed at Fort Meade at the Army RV unit. Viewing is done blind or with minimal front loading, no sensory cueing. Consists of the viewer in a focused state of consciousness, relating perceptions to a monitor who relays the data to an analyst. This is an example of extended remote viewing. Many of you who came to the conference in Las Vegas heard me talk about the Saint-Exupéry crash, where a pilot, after the Second World War, at the end of the Second World War, ditched his plane off the south coast of France. And through IRV and CRV, these remains were located, and we actually got feedback of the location of the plane, as a lot of matching of the perceptions. Associative remote viewing was developed by Russell Targ for Silver Futures work. Useful for outcomes that have an ambiguous outcome, such as the stock market, up or down, or targets with numbers. It's a specific protocol where the viewer perceives one of two hidden targets that are associated to event outcomes. The viewer is shown one target at the event outcome. And it's a very specific protocol and very useful in these types of applications. These are some examples of the kinds of targets that would be used. One would represent the stock market going up, one would represent the stock market going down. And the viewer would attempt to view the target that was associated with the actual outcome of the event. Vector dowsing, adapted from dowsing skills taught to Marines in Vietnam. Uses map coordinates distant from the target location, no local presence needed at the site. Underground artifacts, tunnels and caves are very susceptible to this type of viewing. It's a very useful skill and can be used for archaeological excavations and mining applications. Vector dowsing can be used in projects such as this one at Sepphoris in Israel. A pre-dig grid map of the excavations were provided to the viewer, and in the center you can see several numbered squares. These were the squares that had not been excavated, so the viewer used these as coordinates and was able to locate a bath area, bones, specific designs on pottery, amongst other things. And when the area was actually excavated, these items were recovered and were noted, and feedback given to the viewer. RV profiling is another RV application. This was a student in New Zealand, and in one of my classes, the students were given individual envelopes in which were pictures taken from the newspaper, pasted onto white paper, and they were asked to give an impression or their perceptions of who was in the envelope, what they looked like, what their personality was like, anything that they could perceive. And this individual, this woman said, this is a male, I can see the top half, middle-aged, he's wearing a suit, he's got graying hair, he's neat, he's short, his hair is short. a strong opinion, establishment type, confident and convinced. And she said, I can only see the top half of this person. And when she opened the envelope, there was Bill Gates standing at the podium. And I use people who are in the public media for this type of study, because this type of exercise, because they are already out there being viewed by millions of people. So these are good targets to use. RV profiling again. This student in a recent class, she had this picture in a sealed envelope, no way that the viewers can see what's inside the envelope. She said this is a male, his hair is black, he's age 60 plus, famous for relation mediation, war activities, clothing, he has a suit and a tie. Personality, he's dignified, emotion is hidden, activity, peace negotiations, and terrorist stuff. And she drew the picture. I asked her, well, who do you think this is? And she said, I think it's Colin Powell. So I said, well, write it down, which she did. And when she opened the envelope, indeed, it was Colin Powell in the envelope. Does remote viewing work? Last year, we did a study, 25 adult subjects, double-blind study. The participants were 20 to 66 years of age, 13 males, 12 females. They were between 63 miles and 9,513 miles away from the target. The targets were pictures in an envelope, sealed pictures that had been chosen by another person and numbered sequentially 1 through 100, and they were chosen, the targets were chosen by random number for each subject. 8 schools of RV participated. I would like to replicate this study, which I will probably do within a year or so, and would like more participants from different schools. The scoring method we used, and we're going to hear more from Lynn on scoring methodologies. I used the PSI method of looking to see how much accurate information the viewer had perceived about the target. So the questions I asked were, is the information there, is it not there, or is it questionable? And through a formula, we were able to get a percentage of correct information for each participant. They averaged 62% correct information across the 25 participants. 10 of them scored 80% and higher correct information from the targets. And there were no gender differences. Males and females did equally well. Some examples of the study work, and I want to go through this pretty quickly because we've got a lot of slides to go through here. Following are examples of remote viewing work performed double-blind for this particular study. The viewers used mainly CRV or ERV methodologies. Sessions took an hour on average to complete, and most were performed solo, that is, without a monitor. And session summaries were often many pages long, some of them up to 30 pages of transcript. And I've only used abstracts for this presentation. This viewer said the target is land with man-made life, water and motion, grainy green area with paving, a body of water, very deep, very blue, a construction that's white and very tall. This viewer, and they were just given a coordinate, no upfront information, totally blind targets. The target contains man-made and water. The man-made is 75 to 100 feet tall. It's pointed, angled, and has sides all the same proportion. The man-made is partially submerged in water. This participant said his target was outside, gray, blue, green, dim, dark, quiet, cool, fresh smells. Predominantly natural, there appears to be a substantial amount of water at the site, a mountain or volcano. Another participant, natural stone, not complete, odd arrangement of textures and shapes like natural objects in an unnatural arrangement. Person feels surrounded, autumn, history. And remember, these are extracts from the session summaries. Another one, open, airy feeling, travels associated up and down motion, is associated to sight. Height and visibility, sense of motion. Some portion of the structure is rounded, speed and travel. And a final one here, neutral colors, brown, sepia, beige, and black. Surfaces that are shiny, others grainy. Sense of stepping down in a series of serrated ranks, rounded sequential arrangement. So these are study sessions. What about real-life applications? Civilian RV applications have been in place since the late 1980s up to the present time. The accuracy rate, which is difficult to evaluate in applications, real-life applications, it's estimated between 50 and 75% compared to 20% achieved by chance. Real-world targets have included historic events, archaeological sites, criminal cases, missing children and adults, business futures, and real estate development. Some examples, there are 3 examples of operational work that's been carried out by a trained remote viewer using IRV and CRV. The viewer was tasked with coordinates and, in some cases, very simple front-loading, such as what, why, when, where, and who questions that didn't reveal target information to the viewer. For instance, we worked on the Unabomber case before he was captured. The viewer, in this case, gave a physical description of Kaczynski, his coloring, his age, his stature, behavior and activities, his psychological state and his intelligence, his appearance and the location of his cabin, not the name of the state where he was, but a very detailed description of the surrounding area and the dilapidated cabin. The data was given to the FBI in 1995. Never heard anything back. We assume it was put in the round file. And Kaczynski was caught in 1996, and we were able to evaluate much of the remote viewed perceptions, which was very successful. A Boston art theft case, an art theft in 1990 valued it between 150 to 200 million, Isabella Stewart Gardner Art Museum. The viewers, a whole group of viewers, described the entry into the museum, the movement of the art, the locations of the art, current location, persons involved, vehicles. In 1995, all this information was handed over to the people who were doing the investigation for the museum. The case is as yet unsolved, and we don't know if they've used the remote viewing information. Real estate development, an investment group in California had $750,000 to invest in property in Australia, and they wanted to know what potential problems are we going to have, what kind of buildings are best to be purchased, and how is our investment going to grow over between 1 and 15 years. The clients were very satisfied with the information, bought property, and have been repeat clients. Our current situation, every paradigm will, in the process of finding new problems, uncover problems it cannot solve. And we've come across some problems that are difficult to solve in the last year. It's these unsolvable problems that provide the catalyst for triggering the paradigm shift. And this is a quote from Joel Barker, who writes very eloquently about paradigm shifts. Here's some work that was done pre-9/11 with permission from Transdimensional Systems. A remote viewer in the year before 9/11, viewer number 1 was blind tasked, actually this was 97, with a coordinate. The tasking was future terrorist attacks. The viewer reported 2 structures falling fast alike, a missile bomb blast, New York. This was in 97. And this was the sketch, one of the sketches that the viewer made. Another second viewer from the same group, Transdimensional Systems, was blind tasked, again in 97, coordinate And the tasking was the perpetrator of potential future terrorist attacks. And they said multi-layered building, airplanes, and Saddam Hussein. Third viewer of the same group, blind tasked with a coordinate. The tasking was the perpetrator of potential future terrorist attacks. They said a city landscape, office buildings, metal and glass structures. And these were the sketches that accompanied their sessions. Post 9/11 tasking. The Nevada group, as I'd mentioned, was set up as a humanitarian remote viewing group for finding missing children, for lots of other projects that required remote viewing applications. So we wanted to apply training and experience of remote viewers in operational applications. Viewers can train for so long with pictures and envelopes and practice targets. Where do they go from there? Well, what I've tried to do with the Nevada group is to provide a venue where viewers can put their skills, their training into practical applications. We were looking at the perpetrators of 9/11, the anthrax mailings, and the prevention of future terrorist attacks. This was a coordinate that was given to the Nevada group. And the question that was asked, which these were blind taskings, the viewers did not know the nature of the tasking. The tasking was the persons responsible for the anthrax mailings. We got a description of two people in a vehicle, a man who has straight brown hair, smallish forehead, large nose and face, and his eyes were slits. That was the description of the person. And this was a sketch that was that accompanied one of the transcripts. And there was a description of a dark blue car. Another coordinate that was given to the Nevada group was how did the woman in New York get anthrax? The viewers perceived the New Jersey, a freeway exit, number 333, Cloverleaf, Oceanside, New Jersey. A heavy-set person, dark oriental man, and lighter, slight woman. We also tasked future terrorist attacks, possible scenarios. And I'd like you to remember when I show you this that remote viewing is not 100% accurate. What we do here is look at potential events. Southern California was noted as coming up several times, particularly LA, red flames and explosions. Another event health-related in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, and mushroom clouds over Seattle, Denver, and Florida. I sincerely hope that these are not correct. Information about those responsible for the anthrax mailings. The group came up with a group traveling between Florida, New York, and New Jersey, groups gathering in California, particularly Los Angeles and Seattle. These viewings, by the way, were done in October of last year. And a male will be going to California in near future. A series of fortunate events leads to his capture. We also asked a couple of people who are not remote viewers, these are natural intuitives, what they perceived, and they came up with some interesting similarities. This individual said she saw a New Jersey warehouse at the end of a pier within sight of the Statue of Liberty, Bayonne or Hoboken, cargo containers and rail tracks, a white male, glasses, beady eyes, skin disorder, around 40, and in video of particularly the Trenton post office anthrax findings, he would be seen in videos taken at those locations. The Daniel Pearl killing, these were partially front-loaded viewings because of lack of time, and we wanted to find information. There was perceived was a tan color building and an open area, sand, sparse vegetation, two walls in front of and people walking on the street around it, arched openings in the wall, man with black brim, hat and crew cut. I've included these because we got some good information. It was passed on. Unfortunately, it didn't prevent the killing, but I'm including these as some examples of remote viewing applications. Recommendations. These data sessions are just the tip of the iceberg. There's a wealth of resources available. People who are being trained at least 8 schools of IRV. Where do these people go to put their applications, their work into applications? It's wastefully managed. You've got duplication of effort in various groups. It would be wonderful if these areas could be combined. And it's essential to garner this source of human intelligence by the development of an interdisciplinary team that understands the concepts of remote viewing, tasking, monitoring, and analysis. And as I say, we've put together the Nevada group. It's still in its formative stages. We would like to improve and consolidate this group and invite other people to be included and continue our work. That is the conclusion of this PowerPoint presentation, and we're going to open up for questions.
Actually, we're going to have a mic right here.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, why not do the mic?
You're doing statistical analysis. Did you take a look at common
Sorry. It only works in my hands. I have an electric personality. If people have question and answer type stuff, that's fine. It'd be nice if you made your way to the center here. If you could do that. It's not a wireless one. Can't do Phil Donahue. So anyway, Harry, good to see you. Got a question?
Yes. When you do your statistical analysis, do you take a look at common hints in the group? In other words, try to cross-correlate things that are common to all the reviewers in the group?
The question, yes, you heard the question. Yes. We're looking, when we do a statistical analysis, that is basically, we do a statistical analysis of the research work. When we're doing an analysis of the remote viewing work, we don't actually do statistics. What we are looking for are commonalities, useful, workable information that can be passed on. So we don't do statistical analysis with the operational work.
Okay, any other questions here? We have one. Come on up here. And it's the press, so everybody is.
I don't sound overly self-centered because I'm from England, but did you get any forewarning of anything happening in Europe or England?
We haven't had anybody tasked with that particular question. We've been working mainly with the taskings that have come in from outside of our group. What I would like to do would be to widen our tasking to include some of those questions, that particular question, what is going to happen in Europe. We have looked at India and Pakistan, for example, but we haven't looked at Europe.
Okay, any other questions?
In the evaluation you described, where you were getting 80% correct matches, where a person was trying to describe a picture in an envelope, did the person who was looking for similarities between the drawing and the target picture, did that picture know what the correct answer was, or was it a blind matching between the drawings and the actual target?
This was not we didn't use the methodology of blind matching the target against decoy targets. What we did was we used a method that was developed by PSI, which looks at the actual target compared to the session. So we weren't looking to see if this was a hit or not. The method that you describe is very useful to see to evaluate a hit or a miss. What we were looking at was the percentage of correct information from the target. Our motivation was different. We didn't want to know if it was a hit or a miss. That seems to be a very subjective type of evaluation. We were looking for a very specific number, a percentage of information. So we used a different methodology. But in future, it might be very educational to use several different types of evaluation of the targets, including blind matching.
Okay, any other questions out here? Anything? I've got one, actually, Sister Angela. From a guy like me, I'm looking at this and you got that Twin Towers and nice little airplane thing. You said that was remote view back when?
97.
97. That portends a very significant disaster. And now you come up with, after the fact, when we present this and we say, okay, this is what we remote view. From a skeptical side, or non-believer side, or so, whatever you want to call it, agnostic, is how do I know that? Not to impugn your credibility, but for outside people. So when you remote view these types of things, have you a method in place, or do you plan to put a method in place where you remote view something that actually like the disaster type scenarios, thousands of deaths and such, that you can put them and secure them in some sort of time-stamped way that remains sealed, that if something does come up, you can produce this documentation credibly and say, yes, this was done beforehand.
Yep. In the past, this was not done. In 97, the particular group, TDS, did have third-party corroboration that these sessions were done at that time. What we have in place now is a system where if we have a session that's predictive, then we can take it to a notary and have the session notarized.
Okay, that would be good. Thank you. Have another question here?
I just wondered if you remote viewed the Chandra Levy case or the kidnapped girl Smart or the Joan Benet Ramsey, any of those cases, if you worked on those.
Those are three particular cases. I know there are several of my students that had remote viewed the Chandra Levy location, and there were quite a few matches between their perceptions and what was eventually discovered. We have not worked on the little girl that's missing in Utah, although many individuals have come up with spontaneous perceptions. We haven't tasked that. In the summer, we're going to get a little more diligent in following up some of these cases. The Jean Benet Ramsey case, we looked at with an IRVA type of remote viewing and perceived quite a bit of information. But of course, a lot of it is still unknown. Until we get feedback on these cases, then we don't know how accurate the perceptions are.
You showed us three cases of the Twin Towers. How many people were tasked or asked to view forward in 97? And so you have three, how many? And the second follow-up on that is how many have talked about mushroom clouds in several cities? Can you give us some kind of ideas and numbers of?
Yeah, there were a total of 11 viewers who were tasked with those particular coordinates. Not all of them did all of the sessions. It was a lot of tasking, it was a lot of work to ask of viewers, and they did what they could. So 11 viewers were involved in that particular tasking. Only, I believe, one came up with that particular scenario, the mushroom clouds. So again, as I say, RV is not 100% predictable.
How many were the Twin Towers? Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any discernible connection between what is produced by remote viewing and that information that might be required in the dream state, in particular that part between the dream and the waking state, that part in between?
Very much so. In a type of remote viewing called IRV, which is done in an altered state of consciousness, that has a strong correlation with that hypnagogic state between waking and sleeping, where the individual is hovering between sleep and awake and is able to perceive and report what they perceive. Yeah, so there is a correlation.
All right. Anybody else have courage to come up here? Oh, we have one.
Angela, I'm very interested in how many of these remote viewing groups do missing children, etc. Do you see technical things in remote viewing, such as development of new drugs for cures of cancer or things that would couple people that are in pain? Do you ever do anything technical? Could you give us examples?
Yeah, could you repeat the question? Or ask, yeah.
Technical things in remote viewing.
That there are technical, I'm sorry, can you formulate the question?
Let me see if I can get the question right. Are you doing technical remote viewing to help in any kind of medical procedures or analysis?
No, we haven't done that, but we are open to doing that.
Oh my gosh, stuck up behind me. That's a threshold. But not really. Who is first? No, frightful, yes.
Is there any correlation between remote viewing and lucid dreaming, and especially those that have a lot of lucid dreams?
There are correlates between certain types of remote viewing. When you're talking about coordinate remote viewing and controlled remote viewing, there are no correlations because they are totally different applications, different protocols. With ERV type altered state remote viewing work, there are correlates with information that's perceived in dreams, in lucid dreams, and hypnagogic states.
Thank you. We have Dale Graffner, one of the experts on this subject matter.
Yeah, and that's
Those are good questions on the correlation between dreams, lucid dreaming, and lucid viewing. That's going to be the main topic of my talk tomorrow. But there are similarities and there are dissimilarities, and I'm doing a lot of research over the past 10 years looking into that. In fact, going back longer. And I can see differences in correlation. That's too complicated to go into now, but tomorrow I'll talk about it.
I look forward to. I look forward to that.
In light of the Vice President's warnings of future terrorist attacks, do you see anything coming up for July 4th, which is supposed to be a very big date?
Lots of fireworks, flashing lights in the sky.
The group has not predicted anything for any particular date. When you carry out remote viewing applications, the time and space are difficult to pin down. You can do date lines and timelines, but we have not predicted anything for any particular time or date.
Okay, thank you, Sister Angela.
You're welcome.
Questions and a good presentation. Appreciate everybody's attention. We'll go ahead and take a break now.
Thank you.